Alright guys, welcome back to the shop. So I wasn't going to start recording yet because I had a different plan for today's video that wasn't doing anything with the bed frame, or not a whole lot with the bed frame, but I decided that I can actually make some pretty decent progress today outside of, following the set trajectory that I was already going on. So on the bench right now, I have our two side rails and then the bottom piece of our headboard, and I'm just doing all the final filling here. Because I was hoping when I came into the shop today that I'd be able to re-drill that hole that I screwed up on yesterday. Now, when I was filling it with epoxy, I ran out of my 5-minute epoxy and I had to go to my 24-hour epoxy. Part of that hole has 5-minute epoxy in it, part of it still has 24-hour epoxy that still has to cure, and so I can't re-drill that hole until tomorrow. So without giving up the whole day, what I want to do is just figure out what I need to do with this project to make sure I can get it done this week, as well as start doing some of our prep work that doesn't have anything to do with, fitting stuff up. So like I said, I wasn't planning to make today's video about the bed frame. I was going to go and actually sort out my lumber rack and clean that up. But we'll save that for when this project is done, because I actually was thinking about it and I can actually get some pretty good work done on this today. So as you guys can probably tell, this project is currently flying off the rails. Everything that can go wrong is going to go wrong, and I know that that's going to happen. So what I need to do is figure out the best course of action to carry on with this project. So all I did was grab a piece of paper and just write down what I want to try and get accomplished each day that I think is a reasonable amount, plus a little bit extra that I can then carry over to the next day if need be. So as it sits right now, on Monday, the first thing I'm going to do is get that hole drilled so we can get that footboard leg fit up. Because then once we have that footboard leg fit up, we can then jump over to our footboard and headboard pieces and start getting them all cleaned up and getting them ready for glue up. The priority here is going to be getting the footboard done first, because the edge profiles we're going to have on the footboard are going to interact with our side rails. So the sooner we can get that stuff fit up and put all together, the sooner we can get that edge profile put around all those pieces. Once I have the footboard all glued up and ready to go, then I'll move over to the headboard piece, because the headboard is completely independent of the rest of this stuff and it can just be worked on its own. And so it's that kind of order of operations that is going to be really important to keep in mind. But anyway, what I'm going to work on today is just starting to prep as many of the pieces as I possibly can. So the only piece that we can't prep today, annoyingly enough, is the headboard, because I could theoretically work on getting the headboard fully done up today, fully glued up and all that if the panels were looking good. But that bottom stretcher on the headboard had a pretty big knot in it, as you guys have probably seen along the way. Then I filled that with the same 24-hour epoxy. It flowed through. It's filling this big crack that's in it. It's doing exactly what it needs to do, and I need to do this at some point in time. Realistically, I should have done this right at the beginning of the project when there was a lot more open time in it. I don't know why I waited this long to finally do it. So what I'm going to focus on is getting our headboard and our footboard legs fully cleaned up. Then with that, I can start moving on with all the other footboard pieces, so our stretchers, the dividers, all that kind of stuff. I can get that all cleaned up. So then I could realistically be at the point where tomorrow when I come to the shop, all I have to do is drill that hole, then glue up the footboard. It should be that quick and simple. Alright, and so with a quick trip to Home Depot, we can now start working on our tapers. So my initial idea was to just do the tapers with the hand plane the same way we did on the last bed. Obviously, because we're working with hard maple, that's not going to work very easily. So luckily, one of the tools I do have around is this belt sander. Now, I don't really know what the use of these for. I know they're mainly a construction grade tool, and they're used for something in construction, I think for like leveling stuff. But I bought that before I got serious into woodworking, and I used to use it to help flatten boards and pieces of wood and all that. To no avail. So this is not a tool that I'd recommend having in your shop as one of the tools that you need, but it's definitely something that's kind of handy to have around because it does a lot of the similar jobs to a hand plane, but you're using sandpaper so you don't have to worry about tear outs. That is the major benefit here. So I'm going to be using the belt sander here with some 50 grit belts to then remove the majority of our material. Then we'll go back in with the random orbital sander at its normal grits and just tune things up and clean things up a little bit. Because these 50 grit belts are going to do a decent amount of damage to the wood, but it's nothing that we can't take out with our sanding later on, going from 80 grit all the way up to 220. All right, so I'm going to call it a day there. We actually made really good progress. The footboard with just a little bit more work tomorrow, just basically drilling our pinholes and finishing off our divider pieces. It will be completely ready to glue up. So if I go back to my list, I can just double check my things that I need to get done tomorrow. So I need to drill that last hole. That we're for sure gonna be able to get done. Prep and glue up the footboard. That's for sure, again, gonna get done. So that means that tomorrow I should actually be able to start getting the headboard all cleaned up and prepped and ready for its glue up too. And that'll probably take me most of the afternoon too, because we have to do that same tapering thing that I did on here, and that takes a long time. That is a very painful technique. You guys will notice that I ended up using a hand plane for most of it. I ditched the belt sander because the belt sander was good for kind of roughing things out. It very much so acts like any other sander where it tends to dig a hole rather than, making a nice flat surface. So I would rough out the material with the belt sander, clean it up with the hand plane, and then went back over and finished it off with the random orbital sander, which all around gave a very good finished edge. We have a nice smooth taper all the way through here. So we still have that to do on those headboard pieces tomorrow, but I am optimistic that if it doesn't take me too long to get that bolt hole drilled and to get the footboard finished up and glued up, we may actually get most of the way through cleaning up the headboard, which means Tuesday morning we can probably glue up the headboard and get that whole assembly together. Then we can move back over onto the footboard and the side rails, get them all cleaned up, and we actually should be in a pretty good place. So I'm really glad that this morning I took the time to write down what else I need to still do, because now, according to my schedule that I've just laid out here, I'm already, half a day ahead. So that is going to do it for today, guys. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.